Yo, what's going on, guys? This is Comrade64. How you guys doing today? And I'm back with another video. And for this video, I'm going to be talking about American Tokusatsu adaptations and do I think we still need them? And do I think we can see them like possibly make a return? Now, for those who are wondering what are American Tokusatsu adaptations, well, it's essentially what Power Rangers kind of is. Basically, American Tokusatsu Adaptation is basically a show that takes footage from an action show, from either from Japan or another country. They take American footage, they take the action footage and splice it with American footage. And once in a while, they will just do their own thing, for their own original footage and fight scenes and stuff like that. But for the most part, they just pick the footage from either the Japanese version and just splice it with American footage, you know. So yeah, Power Rangers has been doing this for years. Power Rangers and Super Sentai. Power Rangers being adapted from Super Sentai. We've had other American Tokusatsu adaptations like VR Troopers and Big Bad Beetleborgs, both which that were adapted from Metal Heroes. And there's also Saban Smash Rider and Kamen Rider Dragonite. Both have been adapted from Kamen Rider. And then there was also Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, which was adapted from Gridman. Most of these shows, with the exception of Kamen Rider Dragonite, came out in the 90s. Like, the 90s was pretty much, when this whole American Tokusatsu adaptation thing started to explode, Well, Saban Entertainment basically did all these shows, you know, except for Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, which was made by Deke. Deke, so Saban continued to, to do Power Rangers like all the way up to 2002 with Power Rangers Wild Force, and then he sold it to Disney, and Disney started to continue with the adaptations, with Ninja Storm all the way up to RPM, and then Saban brought the franchise back from Disney, and we had the Neil Saban era, which wasn't all that good, honestly. And then then he ended up selling it to Hasbro, and Hasbro still has the rights to the franchise as right now. Now, unfortunately, uh, those Hasbro has kind of stopped, with the Sentai adaptations, Super Sentai adaptations, with Power Rangers, Cosmic Fury back in 2023, and that be the last adaptation that we will get so far. Now Power Rangers is said to get a reboot, but it will not be adapted from any Sentai at all, from my knowledge. So yeah, it does kind of seem that American Tokusatsu adaptations don't seem to be likely to happen again. But there are some exceptions, however. Now, Metal Heroes has pretty much kind of ended back in the late 90s. Kamen Rider is still going on. We're having two American adaptations so far, but both of them being commercial fails. Commercial fails. Well, Kamen Rider Dragonite actually won a daytime Emmy, so that was something right there. But Dragonite still kind of suffered with the low ratings. The toys came out late and such, and the show didn't have that much promotion, and it also aired on the CW for kids. That wasn't really a popular channel at the time. If Dragonite was on a different channel, it probably would have done well. Like maybe Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network, one of those. Yeah. So I have been wanting to see another comrade adaptation for years now, even though at this point it probably does seem very extremely unlikely. Now, Haim Saban, with his new company, Saban Brands, at the time when they brought back Power Rangers in the 2010s, he did trademark something called Power Rider, which many of us thought was going to be possibly another attempt to adapt Kamen Rider, the third attempt. Unfortunately, that trademark didn't go anywhere. It was just It was just it kind of felt like it was just a pointless thing just made for nothing. If you're gonna trademark something and just not do anything with it, like that doesn't make any sense. Or maybe there was an intent to do something with the Power Rider trademark. It was supposed to be a comrade adaptation, but the last minute it just didn't happen. It ended up inspiring in 2014. Yeah. So I still have hope that we will probably see another comrade adaptation someday. You know, very unlikely at this point, but hey, a guy can dream. Now, also, they some people say we don't need to adapt it anymore, and I guess in a way it's true. We're kind of getting the show weekly over here, but are we getting all the seasons over here? I don't know. Yeah, so American Tokusatsu Adaptations. I've always been a fan of the concept. It imagine like it seems like a fun thing to do, like adapt this show from another country. Take all the costumes, the monsters, suits, and also like other things that the heroes have, like the mecha, like Megazords, spaces, other stuff like Super Sentai, Megazords, yeah, the vehicles like Kamen Rider, the bikes, and Metal Heroes, those arsenals that they have. S- take all that and just do your own thing with it. Yeah, you know, and now with Project Red, coming out, I do kind of wonder, will we ever see no, well, super space chef Gab and Infinity when that comes out? I wonder if we probably might ever see that ever get adapted, like somewhere down the line, like maybe in 2028 or the 2030s or somewhere. If Hasbro's be interested, that could be like a new season of VR Troopers, like VR Troopers: The Next Generation or something. You know, but we don't really know. And now, will Hasbro ever go back to making sense adaptations? Like, will you think will they like adapt Boom Boonger, you know, or will they adapt, King Oger or Zenkaiger and Don Brothers? I think it's highly unlikely unless they were to use the Zord footage like they did with Q Ranger and Cosmic Fury. American Tokusatsu adaptations, while they may seem cheesy and may look a bit dumb, and sure, for the most part, they were always kind of geared towards kids, but that's why these shows kind of became somewhat popular. That's why Power Rangers became popular, honestly. And also, aside from Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, and Metal Heroes, and I guess Ultraman, well, Gridman is kind of considered an Ultraman spinoff, but it Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad was the closest thing we got to an Ultraman adaptation. And like for kids, when they dubbed Ultraman Tiga back in the 2000s, I think they should have just straight up adapted Ultraman Tiga, honestly. That would have been way better than just dubbing the show, honestly. Because when they dubbed it, it didn't last that long. It got canceled and had low ratings. But I think if they adapted it, it probably would have had maybe a better following, in my opinion, because these tokusatsu shows, you know, Dumb and Dumb, I guess is fine and all, but I don't know if there's an audience for it here in America. Like, imagine the Abba Ranger dub, in that Dino Thunder episode. What if we got that instead of Dino Thunder? I don't think it would have do well over here, and like they would have had to edit some stuff, you know. Some Comrade has kind of gotten some English dubs now. I think those did air here. I could be wrong. But if they did it here, I don't think they would have lasted that long, honestly. I mean, the Kabuto dub. And like, these American adaptations, I find it to be very fun and entertaining. I grew up with these and I still love them to this day. And heck, fun fact is Marvel, Stan Lee was actually way back in like the 80s. Stan Lee was trying to see if he can adapt Sun Falcon. You know, the Sentai season Sun Falcon into um you know So but yeah, so even Stanley, I think it was mainly Stanley or maybe Marvel too. So, but yeah, Marvel did was the first to try to consider adapting Super Sentai here in America. Saban kind of did it soon after, when he discovered Shinichi Bioman back in 1984. He shot a pilot in 1986. With and they had some actors in there. Maki Costco was going to be the Red Ranger. Miguel Nails Jr. was going to be the Green Ranger, and Carrie Fisher's cousin, I think, uh, was going to be the Yellow Ranger. That Batman pilot. Hopefully, we get to see that pilot surface someday. Hopefully, and also Tony Oliver, who has worked on Power Rangers. Apparently, he did try to adapt the Garo franchise. He tried to adapt it for like an older audience. It was going to be for like for Power Rangers, but for adults, for older people, the older fans of Power Rangers who are adults. And apparently, he did. I think he did kind of pitch it to some people, but they saw what he was trying to do. They thought they get what he was trying to do, but they felt like yeah, it's probably there's no audience for it. That's unfortunate. Now, that's actually something I heard from some sources. That Tony Oliver did try to adapt Garo. It's unfortunate that we never got a Garo adaptation. That would have been sick, honestly, and that could have been for a much older audience. You know, yeah. Hey, I honestly, I would have watched it. I would have watched that Garo adaptation. I really would. Yeah. So yeah, American Tokusatsu adaptations. Part of me still wants to see more of them. And hope that we do get more of them. Now, there is Armosaurs that airs on Disney XD, and that is actually now that is an American Tokusatsu adaptation, but it's not adapted from a Japanese Tokusatsu show, but rather it's adapted from a Chinese Tokusatsu show. So aside from Japan, there have been other countries that have their own Tokusatsu shows. Jap- China has like so it has Armosaurs or armored swords as it's known in China, and there's also Armor Heroes. Armor Heroes is basically their version of Kamen Rider, and I think Battle Strike Force. They have Battle Strike Force, and that's I think basically their version of Super Sentai. So yeah, and also there's also they also have China also has this other popular one that's very popular. I forgot what it's called. It's called Extreme something, and it's about these warriors. They have these spinny things that kind of feels like Kamen Rider in a way. Oh yeah, yeah. And I guess there are others that have their own tokusatsu live action shows. And heck, America, we actually did do our one and only American tokusatsu adaptation show, and that was in Mystic Knights of Terragonorg back in 1998. You know, at that point, Saban was just focusing on just adapting Super Sentai and the Power Rangers. Beetleborgs Metallics kind of wrapped up, and they decided to well, not they couldn't adapt B Robocop Attack, because B Robocop Attack was just geared towards a much younger audience, so they felt like it couldn't work. So yeah, so I guess he decided to be original and just make their own original Tokusatsu series show. And I think Korean and Vietnamese maybe they have their own Tokusatsu shows as well. Now Saban did also make Luchadors, but that was kind of more of a wrestling show in a way. Luchadors, I think that was called. Yeah, you know, American Tokusatsu adaptations. I still think maybe we could probably see them. Resurface and come out. with Armosaurus, that does get me to wonder, like, maybe we could probably see other American adaptations of not just Japanese tokusatsu shows, but also Chinese tokusatsu shows and one from other countries. So the question is, do we really need American tokusatsu adaptations? Well, probably not. But honestly, I still think it will be cool to see them come back and make a resurgence and be popular. But that's just me. You know, I'm probably alone on this. Probably not. Maybe there are other people that will be fine to see American tokusatsu adaptations come back. I hear some people say that it's kind of ran its course, and maybe it probably has, but they can still bring it back. And kids in this generation, they'll probably check it out. They'll probably take a liking to it. You know, I'm assuming that Armor Source is gonna do pretty well on Disney XD, and it's gonna be eventually gonna be transferred over to Disney Plus. So I'm gonna try to see if I can support that show all the way. So yeah, what do you guys think? Do you guys think we still need American Tokusatsu adaptations or not anymore? And do you think we should like just watch like the Japanese version, the Chinese version, Korean version, Vietnamese version, or whatever version it is, and just not worry about American American versions? Hmm. You can let me know. So yeah, that's it for this video. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And I have more videos come up in the future. This is Commerce64 signed out. Oh, one thing, by the way, I started filming this at 11:50, and now it's 12:12, and now it's December 17th. And guess what? Today's actually it's now my birthday. Yep. Happy birthday to me. Well, anyways, see you guys later. Peace out.